one of the creative team members for Little Butterfly Wings, and I'm here to walk you through recreating this layout you have here on the screen. I created this layout using Val's Back to Bed bundle that was part of her Something Old, Something New special this past week. When I first saw this bundle, I knew I wanted to create this journal card layout, and then I wanted my layout to tell the story. It's a story of this woman who suffers from insomnia, and as part of that, as a result of that, she wants to stay home, go back to bed, and just not be bothered. So as I was thinking of how I wanted to build this layout, I knew that since it's going to be a journal card, I probably wanted to incorporate a template as a basis point. So I chose to use this bundle by a fellow creative team member, Lilach Oren. She designed this template, and it is available in her store along with some other fabulous templates that she has. It's called Mess the Pocket #1, and we're going to actually use Way 1, the basic pocket page. So this is the basis of the actual layout. Now, when I opened up the template in Adobe, because that is the platform that I do create my digital layouts in, this is how the template looks. With the exception of these little arrows right here, they were actually up here a little bit higher, but as I'm building this layout, it's going to be clear as to why I chose to move those arrows down. Now this layout isn't going to have any additional journaling. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and just hide all the journaling aspects of this template. I'm going to hide the title as well as the journaling sections. That way they're kind of out of my way and I don't have to worry about them. You'll see here that the template also has the photo sections labeled, which is fantastic for when you're trying to drop and add items in. It just makes it easier to find them over here on the right hand side. For now, I'm going to leave them in place. As we get towards completing the layout, then at that point in time, I'll hide them. So the first thing that we're going to start with is Our Lady. She is the focal point of this layout, so she is the first person or the first thing that I put on this layout. And give me a moment while I find her. So here's Our Lady. She's going into the photo 1 spot. And you can see she's kind of overlapping the box there. So I'm just going to go ahead and clip her to that section. Now, I wanted the background behind her to blend with the paint, so I then opted to use this blue paper from the paper pack, and I'm going to tuck it layer-wise underneath the paint and clip it to the card as well. So there it kind of gives it a seamless look. And since I am finished with photo 1 box, I'm just going to go ahead and hide the label. Now, since she is, tired and doesn't want to be bothered, we want to make sure that the home is well represented. So I chose to use this paint right here for that. It kind of depicts somebody's living room. And we're just going to clip it to the photo 2 section. And like the lady, I wanted the background behind this to blend. I wanted to look fairly seamless. So I choose this paper to use as my background. And now I'm just going to clip it to the photo 2 section and lay it underneath the paint. And since I'm finished with this section, I am going to go ahead and hide that label as well. Now, we're going to go ahead and focus on the home a little bit more. And for that, we're going to go down here to the photo 4 section. Now in this section, I did opt to use this particular paint right here. I liked this paint piece that showed this woman's legs as she's holding a cup of coffee. And what I did was I actually layered it completely on top of the photo 4 section as well as the tag. Normally I probably would have clipped it, but I wanted it lying on top of the tag. I wanted it to look like her feet were resting kind of over the tag. And I just made sure that the legs were just kind of butted up against the edge because I didn't want the wording to show through either. Now to actually layer underneath these ladies' legs and to represent more of the home on this photo 4 section, I opted to use a journal card as the background. And I chose this journal card. It's a kind of a journal card that represents, I would say, the front door. That's what I have representing. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I clip that to that section. And since this photo 4 section is completely taken care of at this time, I'm going to go ahead and hide the label. Now, so our little lady here, she spends a lot of time saying that it's unfortunate that she's awake. So I have that as just some of the thoughts in her head. So for that, I'm going to place it up here just as it kind of represents, you know, being closer to the mind, the top, the brain. You kind of get the sense of where I'm going with that. I opted to use this particular paint. Now, this paint, I actually have it lying on top of the photo 3 box, the card 1 area, as well as the pocket 2 area. And I could have clipped it to each one of those individually and created a very similar look, but I am about saving myself some work if I can. And I really wanted that seamless look, so I just placed this paint to where it's on top of those 3 boxes, and then I didn't have to worry about clipping them to any of them and doing it several times over to create the continuous look. Now, to place behind this paint, there was this cool journaling card that I liked. And I like it because if you see here, it has the days of the week across the top. And I was like, okay, well, that's perfect because you never know which day of the week this lady is feeling this way. So I am going to use it as the background for not only the this photo 3 section, I'm also going to use it as the background on card 1 because I want to make sure all those days of the week show up all the way across. So to do that, let's go back up here. We have this journal card. I'm now just going to tuck it in underneath the paint, and then I'm going to clip it first to the photo 3 card, and then I'm going to go down here to card 1. And so you can see here where I activated the journal card, and I'm just going to clip it to card 1. And the reason why I chose to clip it to card 1, I could have just left it and not clipped it at all, is because I didn't want the journal card look to flow into this pocket card section. I kind of wanted to have a little bit of different dimension and add a little bit of a different perspective to the layout. Now, for this section right here, this pocket 2 card, there was another journal card that I found that I really liked. I liked the saying on it. So what I did was I pulled this journal card out, and I didn't clip it. I just actually shrunk it down to where the wording would fit in this space because when I use it as the actual journal card side, it was too big. And I just left it lying on top. And then now here you can kind of see why I moved the arrows down, because what these arrows are now pointing to is the words I'm awake, and it provides extra emphasis, which I just thought that added a nice touch. Now, As you can see here, we have this part of the pocket card that's left blank. That's the template part, and this card right here. Now, as I was looking through the papers, I found this one paper that I really liked the design element in. It's this sheet of paper. I really liked this. So I wanted to make sure that when I use this paper in my layout, I was able to incorporate some of this design as part of my layout. And I achieved that by doing this. Let me scroll down here. So on pocket 2, I added this paper. And you can kind of see it's already semi-clipped, but you can see where I have part of this design element coming in. Now I just want to move this paper to where it's tucked underneath the card, so that way our journal card is still visible, and I'm just going to make sure that this is clipped to that card. And in order to continue this theme, I also, in this section right here, I also clipped that paper to that section as well, and this is card 4. So here's the paper, and I just clipped it. And now it gives it a fairly seamless look. If you look close, you can see that it's clipped, but one could think it's just shadowing that's part of the design element. It didn't really matter to me if that showed or not. I just wanted that look to continue. Now down here is card number 5, and I just didn't really have anything that I wanted to add there in particular. So what I did was I carried this same paper and clipped it to this card. And it does add a little bit of continuity to this look right here, just kind of flows. Now for up here in this section, I saw this other piece of paper that had a lot of ink used on it, and there's some areas that were a little more grungy. Sorry, not that one. It was this one. I liked all this ink stains, but I particularly liked this area. And this is the area that I wanted to show in my layout. So I achieved that by doing this. And this is card number 2. So I used this paper. I'm going to bring it up just a little bit so that you can... Let me bring this up just so you can kind of see what it looked like. So what I did was I just moved the paper around until this part of the paper was visible. And so instead of it being laying on the layout like this, I just drug it over and made adjustments until the part of the paper I wanted to show was in the right place. Now I'm going to go ahead and move this back down to the section it needs to be in, so I can clip it to it. And I'm just going to clip it to that card. And there you see I have this nice little ink / grungy element showing. And there was this other piece of paper that I liked. As you can tell, I liked a lot of these papers. It's this one. And I wanted this wording right here to show in my layout. So lucky for me, this was pretty straightforward to do. It's already showing in the bottom right-hand corner of the page. So what I did was I came over here to the card number 6, and I dropped this paper in, that piece of paper, and you can see my wording shows right where I want it to, and I just clipped it to that card. And then for this section, I wanted to keep it relatively neutral. I didn't want anything too crazy design-wise, because if there really wasn't a way to piggyback off of it, I didn't want it to look out of place. So what I opted to do here was to use a journal card. And I actually chose this journal card because of the wording that kind of showed on the right. I felt like it just added more to the story. And I just layered it here and I clip it to this pocket section. Now when I did this, what I didn't like is that this is a very hard line. It's not a smooth transition from this area to this area, and that's not really what I wanted. I kind of wanted to blend and flow and not be such a hard line. So what I did to make that flow a little bit better and to make, me happier visually in my mind, I added this layer of paint right there above it. That way it helped those two areas kind of transition to each other. And then up here in this top right hand corner, there was another journal card that I liked. And I like this because of the flower. Not only the flower, but also the colors and stuff really matched this journal card well. And I felt like that it helped with the transition from one journal card to the other and kind of making a smoother transition. Plus, I liked the wording that exists on this card already. Now we're going to take a look at these little different accent pieces, and for those I opted to make them all the same color. I wanted a little bit of pop, but I didn't want anything too crazy because I didn't really want to take away from the outlet, from the whole layout. I didn't want them to be the focal point, but I wanted just a little pop for distinction. So in order to achieve that look, I opted to use this paper, and actually this is what it looks like originally, and I clipped it to the tag. Maybe try that again. Clipped to the tag, but if you look at this, that looks kind of boring. I'm not impressed by that. To be honest, I really don't like it. So what I did was then I changed the blending mode. I adjusted that whole blending mode to color, and then by doing that, it gave me the dimension of the tag that existed before in a two-tone color. So what I did was I used that same concept on the additional accent pieces. So for the arrows, I did the same thing. I used the same blending mode. And then for this tag. So there, that gave us that subtle pop of color. It works well with the whole layout, but it doesn't take away from anything, which is the look that I was hoping to achieve. And then for these tags right here, I didn't want them to just use them for label tags or anything like that. I decided to punch it up and be a little fun. So for the top tag, I opted to use, for both tags, I used paint to create the look that I wanted. But for the top tag, this one, I used this teal paint piece, and I just clipped it to the tag. And then I liked this black striped paint piece, and what I did was I layered that on top of the teal paint and clipped it as well. And for the bottom tag, I wanted it to look a little bit different, so for that one I decided to use the yellow paint, and I clipped it to the tag. And then in order to ensure a little bit of continuity, I used the black stripe paint again, layered it over the yellow, and just clipped it. And I just thought that was a fun look. Don't know how else to describe that. So this is pretty much the layout in its entirety. When I got to this point, I just felt like something was still missing. And so what I did to kind of add that finishing touch, I added this paint piece on the very top of the layout. I have this heart here to represent a little bit of self-love for Our Lady, even though she's saying she's tired. And I just kind of layered this over the living room because these stripes right here, I liked how, or these lines, stripes, lines, whatever you want to call them, I liked how they added a little bit of grunge to my living room scene. And if you look over here, I actually have a layer mask here, and that's because this piece of paint actually had some additional wording on it, and I didn't want the wording to show in my layout, so I just masked them. And this is my completed layout that I did for Val's SOS and sale, or something old, something new sale. I hoped you enjoyed my tutorial, and hopefully this inspires you to have some additional fun with pocket cards, templates, and creating your own layouts.